Another world. Another time.
In the age of wonder.
You are listening to
Trial by Stone.
Trial by Stone!
Dea, Tea, Dara, Tea.
Your vital essence, the dark crystal.
Kida, Kida.
Come, see for yourself.
Aru, Garu.
How very interesting.
Dea, Tea. I feel the song of Thra in my heart. Now go, you heroes of Thra.
Hello and welcome to Trial by Stone. This is your vital essence for the Dark Crystal. I'm your host, Philip.
And I'm your host, Ethan.
And I'm your host, Jamie.
And today we're going to talk about the 6th episode of the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. This episode's called By Gelfling Hand. And we're just going to keep talking about, every episode of the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. And also just to let everyone know that even though we do talk about just the moments within the episodes of the show, we do talk about the whole season, all the episodes like as a whole as well. So letting you all know way in advance that there will be spoilers for the entire show, or for the entire season of the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. So, I'm just trying to think, where to start off all out. We've got our heroes, because, this is something that did happen in the previous episode that we sort of ran out of time, that they were getting taken away, that they were going to go to the Castle of the Crystal with all our heroes, except for Rian, and with Naya, Kylan, and Gurjin, and Rian, they're all together, and they sort of they get to Hurrah, but they sort of miss them because they're like, oh, they're going away. So, and it was, pretty interesting. There's actually a lot that goes on. And as the heroes are sort of getting onto their carriages to sort of try to rescue them. And that was just, again, another great sort of continuation of the carriage sequences. Just incredible stuff. I was actually just looking how Hup, he's just sort of feeling like a bit unwell or a bit sick, I guess from all the movement, in the carriage. So it's just, there is a lot that happens in this episode. So I just don't know where to begin to talk about, because there's just so much that again sort of happens.
Yeah, there is a lot. There's this. We have the dream space episode, the call to the heroes, the call to the journey, and then this next episode is essentially the journey beginning, and where that's gonna. And we see Seladon sort of taking her place in that journey, her rejecting the information that she's found out, and siding with the Skeksis, and her mother has lost her life, and she's decided, I'm going to become Maudra, and so she's called all the Maudras to herself. And then you have, of course, our main heroes on the journey to find or to go to where, as we eventually discover, Urgo and was it the Wanderer? No, it's Urgo called the Wanderer? Skekra the Conqueror, right?
Yeah, Skekra the Heretic and Urgo
the Heretic. Wanderer. I'm sorry. Yes. So it's a lot of the Fellowship is almost at the precipice of breaking up and going their own ways. It's a very transitional episode, and a lot of, again, more information that's coming out. But you're right, though, Philip. There's so much going on. This show could have 5 different episodes on one episode, 5 different after shows on one episode, detailing the puppeteering, and just there's so much going on. But I really loved this episode. I thought it was again just perfect and so beautifully executed, and all of the information that we're telling. And there's a lot of information. It's effortless. It just feels natural. It feels, but you also can feel I feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, but you feel that not so much danger, but you feel the stakes. You feel what's at risk now, that the world is really at risk, and you better take your place, and you better find your place, because we don't have time to stop.
Yeah, again, it's just so much. And actually just, watching throughout the show, and, the stakes are sort of rising high as the Gelflings are trying to get them out, but then sort of Law sort of comes in to save the day, essentially. sort of almost heeding to Bria's call, because of course the Law did said that he'd basically protect Bria, which actually made me thought about, like, basically almost everyone has their own protection. So it's like Bria has Law, Deet has Harp, and then I was just trying to think, like, Rian, I mean, I guess he has Gurjin as his protector, so which is all really cool. Yeah, I just love, like, what they did with Law. Like, I know originally that Law was actually going to be a CGI kind of character, and it was really interesting that they decided to, actually figure out, could we actually make this as a puppet? And then they ended up trying to use there's a term, the ban raku, that term for puppeteering, which is essentially just having puppeteers from the outside, puppeteering like the body of the characters. And I think once they worked out a way to to do that with Law, that Law really just came to life in that way. And of course, they did use a bit of visual effects as well, for probably for certain shots and stuff that just wouldn't be possible. So it's just again, just incredible. Yeah.
No, I'm so glad they figured it out. Because I just watched Avengers Infinity War for the first time the other day, and it's incredible. But the Thanos's little minions, the guys that fight for him, I don't know what they're called. I love them, but they're CG, and you can see that they're CG, and it's like really my only knock for the movie is like, those guys. I mean, put somebody in a freaking makeup or a mask or something. I mean, everything is so, I don't know. You can just tell it's not really there. And if what's his name, Lore was a CG character, it just really, it would have been a bummer. So actually having Lore really there, this weird stone creature made of balanced rocks, I mean, it makes all the difference. There's some creatures that were completely CG, like the Armaligs, the creatures that pull the carriages. That's fine. They actually don't really interact with the other characters, but Lore does, and it's such a treat for the audience to see him interact with everybody physically. It's such a big difference, and I don't know. Maybe someday they'll be able to trick the eye to think a CG character is actually really there, but I don't know. We're not there yet. So I'm so glad that they did that cool, innovative puppet. Well, it's old. It's really old way of puppetry, but it was used so cleverly, and I guess that's what I love about AOR is, they tackle a problem in a way that, like, what would Jim Henson do? And that's why this is such a treat. I really don't think AOR would have been done any differently if Jim Henson were there helping out. It really is just true to that spirit, in my opinion. I love Lore.
Just what was amazing is just how well, like, the visual effects and then the puppetry, they just blended so well. I mean, and even like with Deet's eyes, for example, like, they actually had to sort of animate her blinking, and I think it was something to do with, like, because her head was small, to try and operate the blinking of the eyes was just going to be, it was just too challenging or something like that. So they actually had to sort of recreate the blinkings and sort of trying to figure out how to make that work. It's just such a great blend, and it's, again, just a magical show. Like, I mean, even just looking at some of the moments during sort of seeing, like, the crown pieces from the wind sifters, they come pick up a piece of the crown to take to the other clans. Like, even that is sort of very magical. And also, I mean, that was the thing that was really neat, that the wind sifters were actually based on sort of an illustration of it from the world of the Dark Crystal, which I thought was a really neat sort of connection. between that book when it first came out in 82, and then here it is, so many years later.
The Wind
in the show
Sifters are from World of the Dark Crystal, and also I just found this really cool old concept art of a Skeksis that to me screams Skekmal without his mask, and I'm like, oh my god, I've never seen this before. The face shape, the not tendrils but kind of appendages all over his face. I mean, straight out of this old concept art, and they did so much new on this show, but so much old too. I mean, they went into the recycle bin and they said, "Can we use this? Can we use this?" So many things that they made for Dark Crystal, the original film, and we see in this show. It's so cool that they that they made the old feel so fresh and new.
And that was a thing that actually happened recently. Because usually, every time I look at that book, The World of the Dark Crystal, I sort of get distracted by all the pictures. And actually, I think I read the book, and again, just really loved and just how deep that book actually is. Just so many layers of all these interpretations of the symbols and the mythology that was sort of laid out in this book. That, with the film, you sort of only got a bit of glimpses here and there. But with that book, you could really study and analyze it, and but it was just incredible. Just for them going back to the past or looking at things and seeing what they could sort of incorporate with the show. That's for certain. Yeah.
What I love about this episode as well is we see for the first time a part of Thra that's never been shown, which is the desert. They end up going to the desert because they're going to go to the whatever of the seven. I don't remember what that's called. What is it called?
The triangle of the circle, the octagon of the seven circles.
Yeah.
The circle of the sun.
I know. I kept thinking it was like the seven of the
circles of the
seven of the suns.
Like the seven suns?
No, the circle of the suns.
Of the suns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I throw 7 in there because that's in episode 7 is where you see Ergo and the heretic for the first time.
No,
right?
It's actually called the Circle of the Seven Suns in the video game. That's what.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was so confused about that, because I remember when the video game, I think during E3, that they showed off a map of Thra, and it had the Circle of the Seven Suns. I'm like, ooh, okay, that's an interesting sort of location. I wonder if we're going to see that in the show. And then they called it the Circle of the Suns in the show. So I'm like, I have no idea how that got crossed over. Yeah,
that's interesting. What I love about, there's so much to love about obviously the show. We'll continue to talk more about it, but the flying thing, what's that called? The crystal skimmers. I love that you can't tell if it's puppeteered or if it's digital. I would imagine it's digital, but there's something that's really amazing, and I love it about the baby Arathim, that they don't look digital. They look like they're puppeteered. However they created them looks very realistic. It's very tactile. You feel like you could just hold it and touch it. I'd love one of those, by the way. I'd love to have one just sitting on my shelf or whatever. They're awesome. But you see this throughout Age of Resistance. You don't know if something is a puppet or if it's CG. That is brilliant. It is brilliant. There's a couple of times I think where you're like, oh, okay, that might be CG, but I could probably count that on 3 fingers when I realize, okay, this is probably CG, and it's not, because even a lot of the wide shots are real locations or something that's augmented. It's just seeing the crystal desert or whatever. It's a part of Thra we've never seen. It makes Thra so much bigger than, because our idea of Thra is it's just kind of like there's the castle and there's the woods and that's it. But no, Thra, and then when you go to the Sifen clan, they're on the beach and there's ships, and Thra is huge. It's just huge. It's an epic world, and you really see that in Age of Resistance. And it was really wonderful to see them arrive at these rocks on the precipice of the Crystal Desert. It's just a great thing.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, they could have easily just done, a whole show where it's like 10 episodes. They're just in the forest the whole time. So, yeah, it was really great that this show really expands on the world of Thra. And, yeah, just getting to go to all these different environments, from the caves to the high hills of Hurrah, Seven of the Circle Suns, the Crystal Desert, all these different environments. And, each of them are just very unique. I feel like, every episode there's always so, many emotions that sort of run throughout the show. I think in the last episode we sort of talked about with Hup and Deet, and I think this one is definitely with Bria and Deet. And Bria's, she's like being upset at this point in time, realizing, not realizing, but with her mother sort of pass away, and then Seladon basically placed the blame on her, and Bria sort of starts to have a bit of guilt. I can't just she felt the need to go back to Hurrah to sort of do like a ceremony for her mother, and then Deet's like, going back now won't help anyone. I should be there to bury her, send her essence back to Thra. And then Deet's like, well, maybe we could have our own ceremony right here. And it's just like, oh, just the feels right there. And she's like, that would help. And, that's what friends do. It's like, oh, we help. Again, it's just like, another emotional scene. Like, just that Bria may not be able to, be with her mother, to do the burials of traditional stuff. But, what they're going to do is serve another alternative, which we got to see with the sort of the All Mordred's song, when all the Gelflings are sort of towards the end of the episode, when they're in the circle and singing the songs, and then intercutting that with Seladon just burning her mother, which is like pretty shocking. And even I think the librarian very on in the scene where when Seladon was like, yeah, we're going to, burn her sort of thing. And the librarian's just like, for shame. So again, just so much drama that actually happens in each of the episodes of the show.
I love the song as well. I love the moment of the song and them all singing, and it's just pure magic. I haven't watched the show in a while, and just thinking of the show, and it's just, it's overwhelming how amazing it is.
It's yeah, I know it really is just incredible. It's just like, it's just hard to, it's like what to talk about, just because so much happens in each episode. It's like we could just be talking for years on one episode if we wanted to go that way. But also, yeah, I just wanted to point out, I know in the previous episode we were sort of talking about I think with Olgra about knowing the paths and stuff. And yeah, there's a scene where Olga returns to see Uva the archer. I actually love that she just calls him long neck as a nickname or something like that, which I thought was pretty hilarious. And yeah, like she basically says, like, I've heard the Song of Thra, no thanks to your riddles. Yet you found your answers, all but one. And then he pauses and he's like, and sort of says how it all ends. So it's sort of like, I think, yeah, at this point that it's many pieces on the board that she says, many possible outcomes. Olga must guide all to bring about the best one, like herding Fizzgigs. Like, yeah, it definitely seems like at this point, like she only knows the beginning and the middle of sort of where, all the puzzles on the board, it's that sort of thing. So, just thought to bring that. Yeah. What do you think? Or do you think she knows the end?
I don't know. I think she sees more, and that's why she says I'm shooting for the best one. What if her plans, say in a hypothetical season 2, go amok? What if the events of the Dark Crystal movie are not what she was shooting for? What if, she's shooting for the best of all worlds, the best possible timeline? Something happens, messes it all up, and she's like, oh my god, what has happened? And then everything starts aiming towards the events of the Dark Crystal film. And I think she's seen, she sees it all lie before her. She's seen the Dark Crystal movie play out, along with, millions of other possible versions of the same events. And she's shooting for, the good one, the good one, the good one. It's like herding Fizzgigs. She's trying to get all these.
Yeah, it just made me think about, like, with the Avengers Infinity War, when Doctor Strange, he's sort of, in his own trance in Thanos' planet and trying to figure out, like, all the different outcomes. And that, like, it's like there's only one outcome out of all the possibilities. So...
And I legitimately think she, and this is just me, in my opinion, I think she's seen, let's say, 20 versions of the future. Maybe she's seen more, maybe less. But just let's simplify it, 20 or 100 versions of the future, including the events of the Dark Crystal movie. And she's, she saw the Dark Crystal movie, like, I don't want that to happen. That sucks. And so she's shooting for one, and I think something's gonna muck things up so that we do go to the events of the Dark Crystal. And so, yeah, that's not a future she's shooting for. And this is my opinion, but I think she does know the futures, plural, and she's trying to get to one.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this was probably the most interesting thing, like, rewatching this, all the episodes. And Irva actually asks, and where does my path lead? Again, a lot of foreshadowing, and she says, into the sands to face the hunter. And he's sighing, and there's a bit of a pause. He's like, I cannot defeat my dark half. You will find a way, but not without sacrifice. And if I fail, and then she says, the heroes of Thra will be lost. Yeah, it's just like rewatching that. It's like, well, they pretty much almost told us, like, how it was all going to end, like, especially with Irva and the hunter. But I mean, like, watching it for the first time, it just sort of goes by. But watching it, it's like, well, so Olga sort of knew that piece of the puzzle was going to happen about, that he would have to make a sacrifice to sort of save Rian from, being killed by the hunter, essentially. And also, I guess, for Olga to be resurrected. But then again, it's sort of towards the end of the show, like, even Olga didn't know if it was going to work about her essence going to be drained into the hunter. She's like, I didn't know if it was going to work. I was hoping it would.
No, there's a precedence for Agra seeing the future in the Dark Crystal film. When Kira frees herself, with the animals, and Skektek dies, and Agra says, very soon the suns are going to touch, go Gelfling. Kira runs off, and then she whispers to herself, I fear to death. She sees a future where Kira gets killed. I just think that's so interesting how confusing, being a prophet would be. You have to deal with so many futures, plural, and how confusing would that be? And that's what she's doing the whole show, is just wandering around the land, trying to get things to line up and cooperate, and like she says, hurting Fizzgigs, as we saw with Seladon, she can't force anybody to do anything. And I think in a future episode, I don't remember what episode, 8, she goes to Madre Farah, and Madre Farah doesn't listen to her, and she's like, well, crap. Okay, I tried. It
was really the whole moment or moments with Agra and Irva. It's just great. Just his introduction, the way that they met. There's just a lot of mystery surrounding them. They're very mysterious, even though Agra is the most visible in the show. The mystics are more talked about, and of course we see Urgo later on. It was just really a great series of events that's happening between them, and the dialogue that they share. They know a lot as creatures that are well, Aughra is of Thra, but she's also more than just of Thra. She knows things the Gelflings will never know. She's a spirit as much as she is a body. And that's the same for Urva. He's a spirit as much as he is a body. And so they have almost a spiritual connection. Very interesting. I have a hard time with Urva's puppet, with the puppet of Urva. It's just as odd. It just doesn't sell me, but the performance sells me for sure. Just another, again, amazing moment in a show of amazing moments.
And probably a moment, probably not so amazing. I mean, a bit disturbing, I guess. But of course, like, there was that moment where the Chamberlain, when he finally gets back to the Castle of the Crystal, and he sees the Goromand urinating outside, which is you see one stream and then two streams and then three. Yeah.
That's pretty gross. It's pretty sick.
I remember Addis said that they came up with the idea of peeing 3 streams, and Brian Froud loved it. And at first I misunderstood, and I thought Brian Froud came up with it. But Addis did reaffirm, like, no, we came up with it, but he loved it. And it's just really cool to see how they worked with Brian Froud. And like, and I don't know if we ever told you this, because I don't think it's published anywhere, but Jeff Addis said that Brian Froud said that the castle and the stone walls and everything, it came from the Skeksis secrete something from their bodies that creates all the stone grunge that falls off in the film. And I was like, oh shoot, that's cool. That's just, a cool fun fact from Brian Froud that I don't think I've read everything. That's never been put into anything. I hope they release that somehow.
Yeah, that'd be neat. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. Of course, with Dark Crystal, you always got to have those sort of disturbing sort of moments, that we saw from the film into the show. And yeah, that was definitely one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay. Everyone's basically drinking essence. And I actually like the Gorman in this episode. He just seems so drunk on essence and just like getting carried away. And he's like, yeah, this is so good, this essence.
I love that he's the little tour guide in this sequence. Like, let me catch you up on events, Chamberlain. Follow me. Yeah. He's totally drunk. It's
just, again, just so, just so hilarious. And then I guess like just sort of moving on. And I think like again like one of the moments like from the show that I really enjoyed like rewatching it was seeing when all the Mordras they come to visit Seladon and returning all their crowns, the pieces of the crown to her, except for Madra Argot, who couldn't attend. And again, like with this scene, the one thing I actually liked, we had some, scenes that are very emotional or, full of drama, that are very, steady sort of thing, very still. But this scene, like, the camera is actually constantly moving, going around sort of essentially in circles around the characters. And again, just another great example of just the way that the shot, that the scene was filmed and just circling around all the Mordras, essentially, which is again just sort of just another example of just that whole scene. And they're they were going to do this trial by air, which I mean unfortunately we don't really get to see that towards the end of the episode because things sort of got changed up. When at the end when Seladon's like, here, take your crown, Farah. I don't want it. I've got a new crown, so beat that.
But I did love the sequence with the Madras, and it was very powerful. It felt powerful. There was this chance where Seladon was making her intentions known, and what were the rest going to do? And most of them were too scared to do anything. And the ones that decided, no, we're going to stand up for this, they paid a price for it. You pay a price for standing up for what's right. And I love that they showed that. And they let Seladon sort of go and do what she was going to do. And it also, there was also a price for that. It was just very powerful. Her taking flight in that space was also very powerful to me. It's this moment where Farah's like, no, like I reject this completely. And Farah looking around at the other Madras like, wake up. I've just seen, we know what's happening. Wake up. And the rest of the Madras, except for the Madra from, what clan is that? The Drenchen. Yeah. She's the only one who's like, no, I agree. And again, very powerful moment. And it's very layered, again, with the information that's how people respond to the same information that everyone's seeing. Some people respond in fear. Some people respond and react with power, like, no, I fundamentally reject this. And oftentimes the people who make history are the ones who reject reject the obvious, not evil, but just sort of what's going on that's obviously wrong. Sometimes what you see is that's happening is wrong doesn't look like it's wrong. And the people who stand up to that are often people who are criticized the most. And I just love that scene.
Yeah, it is an incredible scene. And again, like I love, like, again, there was another little reference. Again, I think where Forrest like saying, you know, we'll fly Ronep's past. So, you know, Ronep's canon. Which is kind of a neat, little, I guess loving these little Easter eggs. But yeah, I mean, the design for Seladon, like the new design, you know, just resembling a Skeksis or the crown. For me, the crown sort of is very much like the castle of the crystal. Yeah, just a very unique look. And just for her, like, being very, you know, trying to make herself very intimidating. And yeah, it's just like, yeah. Again, it's just, you know, like with her journey, like, you know, this is episode 6, and there's been such an amazing arc with Seladon. You know, how she started off by, you know, feeling like that she's being left out. And we'll have to wrap up for this episode of Trial by Stone. And yeah, there's just so much that happens. And I mean, I'm just looking forward to chatting more of the show in the future. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for more episodes of Trial by Stone. Trial by Stone, the Dark Crystal podcast, is a production of 3 Point Edit. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can do so at darkcrystalpodcast@gmail.com. You can also like us on Facebook, follow on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube. If you'd like to know more about the podcast, visit our website at www.darkcrystalpodcast.com. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next episode of Trial by Stone.